record button. So the thing is, what I found is that through the teaching that I've learned, but not only the teaching, but also through my experience, I've learned that I can really be patient. And we have a saying in English, patience is a virtue. This is not a Buddhist saying or anything. I don't know where it comes from, but certainly in English, we will quite often say um, that patience is a virtue. And it really is. It's a really beautiful, wonderful, amazing, and powerful quality of any human being. And I think you would have to agree that when you meet someone who is truly patient, you feel comfortable with this person. They're not pushing you. They're not saying, come on, get something done, get something finished. They're not like a boss or maybe like a nagging wife or a perfectionist mother who's always saying, come on, do this, get this done, finish it, make it perfect, do it right, hurry up and move to the next thing. What's next? That's okay. Those are worldly pursuits, worldly attitudes. And sometimes we have to go fast. Sometimes we have to think quick. Sometimes we have to be able to jump from one thing to another and even multitask. But then there are times in life when things become genuinely quiet, slow, maybe dull, maybe a bit boring, not much happening. Maybe you start to feel a bit lazy, a bit uninspired, a bit unmotivated, even could be bordering on depression, or another word that we like to use is melancholy. Um, Maybe a little blur or a little in the middle, a little neutral. But patience can actually help us ride through that without having to force ourselves to be something that we are not, which sometimes when people are using this motivation teaching and sort of pumping and pushing, it can actually get a little bit frustrating, a little bit tiring, um, and a little bit you feel that it's hard to achieve. So I think one of the best qualities that we can have is knowing when your energy is very high and acting on it, using it as much as you like, but reminding yourself when my energy is high, this is not going to last. My energy will fall, it will go down. And when I'm down, I remind myself, okay, now my energy is low, but it's not going to last. My energy will become high again. And so we start to understand that naturally, I think for all of us, even for Tony Robbins, he's very pumped on stage, but what about when he goes home? He might just, feel like flopping in his big old chair and having a nap in the afternoon. I don't know. Maybe he's always hyper energetic. Good luck to him. But that doesn't mean that we all have to be like that. And the same also when you meet a highly motivated meditation teacher. Some meditation teachers are very enthusiastic, very high powered. They may be expecting you to be like them. And I know that I used to be like this. I used to, um, I used to be very energetic in my, or I should say, passionate in my teachings. And it's not that I'm not passionate now. I think you can feel that I still have passion. But my problem that I didn't know prior to my awareness of it, I was expecting other people to be like me. So I was expecting other people to have the same enthusiasm, the same passion, the same dedication to practice. So sometimes when I was leading retreats, I would actually feel a little bit like, doesn't anybody get this? And, you know, I'm putting in all this effort, but they just seem to be, I don't know, half dead, half asleep, um, unmotivated. They don't seem to be responding. And I realized that that was actually my problem. So they were getting whatever they get. And now that's my attitude. So I take to a retreat and even to this Zoom or anything in life, I take my energy, my passion, my enthusiasm, my motivation, and I share it. But now I don't expect anybody else to be like me. Actually, what I really would like you to be is like you. So that was the inspiration. Some of you see my post on Facebook. That's why you are maybe reminded to come to the retreat. Many of you, I think, come to the Zoom. Um, Also, I think some of you are just, um, tuned in and logged in for Saturday afternoon Zoom with me. So on my Facebook, I said, what did I say? Be yourself, find yourself, love yourself. And then I said, Zoom yourself. So be yourself. And in fact, I don't know if many of you noticed it, but I didn't write the word yourself as one word. I used two words. Your self, not yourself. Yourself has somewhat of a different connotation, a different meaning. Yourself. It's kind of like something, it's almost like something permanent, something that is a combination of many things. But what I was specifically referring to was your self. So now comes the question. Do you know what the question is? Any idea what the question might be? If I'm talking about a self, would anyone like to write down in the chat what the question might be? Oh, thank you, Costa, for that reminder. I appreciate you. And who is the lover? Aha, Jacques, I like it. Who is the lover? So, not necessarily who is the lover. So nobody reminded me to adjust my focus. Good. Thanks for some questions. I'm glad that you're asking some questions. That's really useful. Who is the lover? What am I? Your nature. Who am I? Who are you? Where is the self? Now you're getting closer, Anka, because remember the question was about self. So what self? Yes, now you're very close, Seema. There's one little word missing between what and self. So the question is, yes, Visakha, well done. What is self? By the way, hi Nilhan, thank you for your addition. Is the self you? Nice question. I really like that. And where is the self? Anka asked. Nice. Who are you? Visakha asked earlier. But who are you is not the question, because we're talking to ourselves. We're introspecting. So I'm not asking who are you. You are asking, as I ask myself, who am I? But this is something that also differentiates. Oh, and Barna wrote, "Who am I?" Something that differentiates what Tony Robbins was talking about and what the Buddha was teaching, especially as I understand what the Buddha was teaching and my experience, is not who am I, but because the who is a story. And Tony Robbins actually acknowledges that as well. The I, the ego, the personality, the character that I think I am, this Jeff Oliver, is a story. And like all stories, it's in a process of change. Like all movies, like all books, like all stories, even a verbal story is a process of change. A book, you can't just sit in the middle of a book and read the same page over and over and over again. It doesn't work that way. You have to flip from page to page. You have to go from top to bottom, from left to right. You have to move. It has to change. A story is a changing thing. It can't be a static thing unless you're talking about that story over there or a story in a book. But the story that you are, the self that you believe you are, that is unfolding in this moment as you listen to these very words, is an unfolding, ever-changing so-called self. And this is why the Buddha said there actually is no self. There's no permanent self. There is an idea of self. There is a concept of self, the self that I think that I am. But that thought is a story. What happens when we are able to transcend this story? What happens when we transcend the belief of who I was, or who I am, or who I'm going to be? What happens in the absence of that story? Then it's not who am I, because the who is gone. The who only belongs to the story. When the story's gone, when thoughts are gone, when concepts are gone, in the absence of those, but yet the mind is still concentrated, the mind is still mindful, the mind is still present. It's not who is present or who is watching, it is what. And this changes everything. Tony Robbins is teaching to hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, I think 700,000 people have joined this 5-day course, free course with him. And by the way, he's donated 1 million meals from the proceeds of the income of the course. So you can do the course for free, or you can pay to be a VIP. The VIP money went to providing meals for 1 million people. They provided, actually, sorry, not 1 million people, 1 million meals. It's phenomenal. And they are going to keep doing that until they provide 1 billion meals. This is very, very powerful stuff. When I think about what I do in a day, like today or in these 5 days, Tony Robbins has provided 1 million meals. What did I do? I ate some fruit and vegetables, and I made some scraps, and I made compost. So I fed some worms in the garden. I think that's I think that's a pretty good achievement, don't you? It's not necessarily high powered and in the same category, but on the other hand, I do what I do. Tony Robbins does what he does. So coming back to this idea of self, when we understand that it is only a story, and I'm not saying that the story, that you don't live in a story, I'm saying you do live in a story. You do have a self. You do have conditioning. You do have a past. You do have what we call an identity. You do believe in this, and this is what you live by. But there's a simultaneous reality, and that is what we find in meditation. Hopefully I'll be able to guide you into this experience later when we do the meditation, and you will start to perhaps even get a glimpse, just for a second or a few seconds, a few moments, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe you've already had this experience many times. Perhaps you can drop into it at will, where you are able to go beyond the concepts of your mind, go beyond the words, go beyond the stories, go beyond the beliefs, go beyond the sentences, the structures, go beyond the I that you think that you are. And we fall into experience, only pure experience. So just because your concepts fall away, your self falls away, the ego falls away, that thing that you've always believed that you are, when it falls away, the mind still functions. So this is a little bit confusing. How could the mind function when there's no ego? It's like having a computer without an operator, or an aeroplane without a pilot. Or, as you know, aeroplanes fly without pilots. And even now we have, driverless cars. Uncle Google has created, the driverless car, as has Tesla created driverless cars. But there's still something that is working, still something that is operating. So when the I, the me, the self, the ego, the conditioned character, personality that I believe that I am, when it falls away, what then is operating in the meditation? These are mental states. So we talk about mindfulness or awareness, sati in Pali language, and samadhi, concentration, that mind's ability to focus, to be perfectly present, but without any thought, without any sense of self, without any sense of I, me, you, them, or even here or there, without the concept of time, no past, no future, actually no concepts, only experience. For some of you, it might sound like I'm speaking Japanese or something. This just may not really make sense to you, and that's okay. It's not that everybody has to have this experience. I'm just letting you know that there is this thing that we can experience, and perhaps I'm inspiring you to go deeper into your own meditation practice. Perhaps go on a meditation retreat under the guidance of a great teacher, where you will be able to have deeper and deeper experiences that will in fact lead you beyond your ego, beyond yourself. So having said that, I will say that we are not simply the self that we believe we are. There is something else that is functioning. So then what does it mean when I use these three terms today, or in the advertisement for this meeting, the topic? Be yourself. Love yourself. Find yourself. And just for fun, I put in zoom yourself. You don't have to zoom yourself, but perhaps that's what you're doing now anyway. Be yourself. What does it mean to be yourself? Firstly, it means, as I've already explained, to be the story of who you are, but not necessarily governed or controlled by what you were in the past. So here I'll give a different slant, a different perspective on this. Can you be the story that you are in this moment? This unfolding moment. Maybe you're sitting there now, you have a pain in your butt. Maybe you can hear the cat or the dog. Maybe something else is going on in your environment. Perhaps even you are digesting what I've spoken about. Can you be just this? Just this. Just this. Just your senses. Just your experience. Actually, now we're stepping out of who we think we are and we're coming back to what we are. What am I right now? I am hearing. I am feeling sensations in the body. I am smelling, tasting. I am seeing. I am thinking. There's some thought. I am feeling some emotion. There's some mental reaction, even if it's calmness, even if it's clarity, even if it's confusion. I am experiencing that. That's why I've developed this lovely new little mantra. It is as it is. I am as I am. I am as I am. This is a true statement. It's actually powerful because it is true. It's so simple. Simple words, simple meaning, but very, very powerful. I am as I am. If I'm peaceful, then I am peaceful. If I am angry, then I am angry. If I'm tired, I am tired. If I am free, I am free. I am as I am. And all is well. Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, sweet aunt. I am as I am right now. How to be yourself. When you go out with friends, maybe what happens if you meet with some old school friends? Do you try to be the person that they expect you to be from back when you were at school? Do you try to make jokes? Do you try to be loud? Do you try to be funny? Or maybe at school you were shy, you were afraid, you were timid. Do you try to portray that person that you used to be? So maybe recognizing that, maybe crawling back into that experience of who you were. Or can you be somebody completely new right now? Can you be calm? Can you be clear? Can you be exactly this and just this? Not only this, because anything can change, any stimuli can come in. Even one of those friends from school could say, "Oh, I remember when you did something stupid and very embarrassing," and reminding you of something embarrassing. Can you be embarrassed? Can you allow that to be the new you? Can you allow that to wash through your mind, wash through your experience? And you remind yourself, that's what I was, not what I am, and not what I will be. When I teach forgiveness, if many of you, hopefully, you have read my book and heard my teachings on forgiveness, I have a set number of questions that we go through, a structure. And we get to a point where I ask us, I ask myself, you ask yourself. After we ask, am I sorry? Hopefully you are, for harming yourself, harming others. Then you remind yourself, that's who I was, not who I am now, and not who I want to be. Or that's how I was, not how I am now, and not how I want to be in the future. But we can equally use the word what. That's what I was. This is what I am. And I will be something different. This is bringing the teachings of anicca, or impermanence, into a reminder in the present moment that even if I believe that I am this self, I am this changing self. I am not permanently anything that I was in the past. Even in this moment, while you hear these words, you're in a state of change. I am in a state of change. When this becomes a true living experience, you can't deny it. You can't go back. You can't pretend that you are something static, something permanent, something unchanging, something, concrete. It's impossible. You become water. I love Bruce Lee, one of Bruce Lee's famous quotes. And Bruce Lee had some amazing, beautiful philosophical quotes. Of course, he was learning also from the Tao, from great masters. And one thing he said was, "Be water, my friend. Be water." And I just love that. Be water. What does water do? It just keeps finding balance. That's all water does, all over the planet, all the time. The water that exists as clouds above our heads, the water that falls as rain or snow, the water that falls on the ground. What does it do once it falls on the ground? It starts to find its way. It creates, it follows the laws of nature. It joins with all the other water, or it soaks into something and becomes a part of something else. It's so changeable and malleable and flexible and adaptable. Can we be water? Can we, if rain drops on wood, bare, old timber, what does it do? It soaks in and becomes part of the timber. If rain falls on a beach, it falls on the sand and becomes a part of the sand. If water falls in the ocean, it immediately becomes a part of the ocean. If it falls in a river, it becomes part of a river. If it falls in a puddle, it becomes a part of a puddle. If it falls in a jar, it becomes part of that microcosm of water in the jar. It becomes, it's still itself, but it becomes whatever the environment that contains it. It becomes a part of that. Another quote, but I can't quote it, so it's not a quote, but something that I heard from Albert Einstein. He said something like, the field in which a particle exists is the sole governing force of that particle. The sole governing force of a particle is the field within which it exists. So that means that a particle is adapting to its field. The field means whatever it is around it, the environment. Now you think about it. When you go to the shopping center, you are influenced by that shopping center. The lights, the sounds, the atmosphere, the attitudes of people, the energies of people. If you go to a cafe, depending on the mood of the cafe, that will change your mood. What happens when you go into public toilets to relieve yourself? Your attitude changes according to that. Your environment is forming what you are at that time. We could say who you are, but also what you are. So your environment, now I'm in my house, my lovely, lovely old house. I feel something when I'm in this house. When I go outside, I have another feeling. When I walk over to the beach, I have another feeling. Every environment that I'm in, every atmosphere that I'm in changes what I am, who I am, how I feel. When I'm with different people, those different people will affect my being. If I'm with a lot of negative people, I may start to feel negative, or I may feel resistance to their negativity, or I may start blaming their negativity. I may want to be free from their negativity. Or when I'm around positive people, I may feel happy, I may feel supported, I may feel embraced and loved. So in this way, yourself is actually a constantly changing phenomenon. And the word phenomenon means something that I don't have another name for it. It's like when we use the word thing. If something is a thing, I call it a thing because I don't know what it's called. A phenomenon, phenomena, is something that I actually don't know what to call it. So that's what I can call the self is just a phenomenon, something that I can't really describe. I've tried tonight, but firstly, because it is constantly changing, and therefore it cannot be pinned down and said that all of us are experiencing this particular kind of self. All of us are experiencing a changing self. So then comes the next point. Find your self. How to find your self. Not find yourself. Find your self. So somebody wrote in the chat earlier, where is yourself? Where is the self? It's funny. It's a funny question. Where is yourself? Where does it exist? Where does it abide? Is it in your body? Is it in your heart? Like, I mean, hang on, I don't know how to do it. In your physical heart? Is that where yourself is? Is it in your brain? Is it in your head? Is that where yourself is? Do you think yourself is your eyes, the thing that looks out at the world? Is that what you think yourself is? Is yourself in your voice, in your expression? Where do you find yourself? Not where do you find yourself? Where do you find your self? Is it out in nature? Is it in any of those environments I spoke about? Is it at the shopping center? Is it with your old school friends? Is it with your family? Is it in a particular group of people? Is it in a particular place? Is it in a particular location in the body? Or is it none of those? Does it not have any particular location? This also becomes a little bit confusing. What does it mean when we say, firstly, what is the self? And I've already said it's an idea, it's a concept, it's a story. Not a bad story, not a bad idea, not a bad concept. But when you try to find it, you can't find it. It doesn't exist in any physical location, and therefore you only have mental location. The only place you'll find it is in your mind. And then in the numerous experiences of mental states, the only place you can find it is in your thoughts. You could say, oh, my emotions are myself, but okay, then you're an angry self, then you're a stressful self, then you're a happy self, then you're a peaceful self. Then which self are you? If you're changing all the time, you are none of those. And then if you are in a self in your thought, what happens when the thought of self disappears? What happens when all thoughts disappear? And again, in meditation, we have this experience. Then you have to rearrange your mind because you realize, I just experienced concentration, pure mindfulness, pure sati, pure presence, pure essence, consciousness, but no self, no thought, no past, no future, no concept, no here, no there, no me, no you. That's when you get freedom. And that's even a funny statement. You get freedom. Who is the you that becomes free? That's also a concept. You don't become free. You are always trapped as long as you believe you are you. The freedom is when you are not you. Or the freedom comes in the understanding, the wisdom, the purity, the realization that I am not what I think I am. I am not my past. I am not even what I think I am now, because that is a thought. And I'm not what I think I will be in the future, because that, of course, is a thought, a future projection that only exists in my thought. This is really deep tonight, isn't it? Are you guys with me, or am I just talking to myself? I am talking to myself, not just your self, but my self. My self is talking. And it's just a self that talks to itself, and it loves itself. So here I get to the third aspect. There is the first, which is be yourself. I've spoken about it. Find yourself, which is impossible, and love yourself. Now, this is tricky. In Vipassana, in our mindfulness practice, in meditation with concentration, you cannot find any self. There is no self to find. This all goes beyond self. But then what do we say? What do we mean when we say love yourself? Love your self. Love the self that you think that you are. This is just a lovely idea. It's very beautiful. And the idea of your self is something that we must live with every aspect of every day. I must live with this idea of myself. You have your idea of yourself. This could be a prison because I always have to be myself. If I feel it's a prison, it's because I am living in habits. I am repeating those habits, patterns, and going round in circles, and therefore I may feel trapped. I may feel that I cannot escape myself. Until you meditate and you realize, oh, there is something outside this so-called self. Even consciousness itself is outside the self. The pure awareness, sati, is outside of the self. The concentration is outside of the self. The mental processes are not a self. Perception is not a self. Feeling is not a self. These are simply processes of mind. So when we say love yourself, now we're talking about metta. We're talking about the conventional self, the contemporary self, the self that you believe that you are. And to love yourself actually along this path becomes very important because we're not enlightened. We don't understand that we are not a self. All we ever really believe is that we are a self. And as you listen to this, you say, I am myself. And Jeff is a self. And everybody else in this Zoom is a self. So just surrendering and being the conceptual self that you are, then it's a much better idea, another concept, to love yourself, as opposed to beating yourself up, hating yourself, putting yourself down, judging, blaming, criticizing yourself. What do you prefer? Other than having no self, which it seems we can't just switch it on and switch it off. When you become skillful, you can. Until then, I have to be with the self that I am. And to love myself becomes very, very important. And many teachings start right here. We start, and my forgiveness practice starts right here, where I look back on my old self, the behavior of my old self, my old character, the things I've done in the past, the who that I think I was. And I realize that I was unskillful. My mind was unwholesome. I was harmful, in fact, not only harmful to others and even other living beings, but also harmful to myself. And therefore, I also brought harm to myself, Because I was putting harm out, I was also bringing harm in. And I was caught in this vicious cycle of cause and effect. When we become more aware, more understanding of the law of cause and effect, when our wisdom matures, we start to realize that loving, acting with love, speaking with love, thinking with love, feeling with love, sharing love, sending love out, being open to allow love to come in. This becomes very, very important in our practice. A step towards self-love is practicing forgiveness, helping to not wipe out, eradicate, or erase, delete the past. We don't do that. We understand the past. We understand the past by reflecting on it in the present. And that reflection helps us to become clear, not only of what we did in the past, but what we say and do and think now in the present. I just took a moment to look at the time, and much to my surprise, it's approaching an hour and a half since the beginning of the meeting. I have covered, at least briefly, those three aspects of be yourself, find yourself, love yourself. And of course, right now, what are we doing? Zoom yourself, zooming myself. I'd like us to move into some meditation, some stillness, some silence. Perhaps you would like to arrange your sitting position. If you need to, go to the bathroom, do whatever is necessary to prepare. Just slow down whatever you're doing. Take your time. Preparation for meditation is also meditation.